In this demonstration you will learn how to use a data template with an items control. Let's switch to Visual Studio. Here I've opened the Customers app project that you can download from the course homepage on pluralsight.com. Now let's expand here the View folder and let's open the Customers View SAML file. Let's scroll down in this SAML file and here you can see a list view which is a subclass of items control. Its item source property is bound to the customers property of the view model that is in the data context. On this list view, you have also set the display member path property to show the first name of a customer. This is also a property that is defined in the items control. Let's run the application and let's take a look at the list view. So here you see the first names of the customers are displayed. Now let's go back to Visual Studio while the application is running and let's remove this display member path property. Now let me bring up the application again. As you can see, now the toString method of the customers is shown. Actually, the customers property contains a collection of customer item view model objects. By default, the toString method returns the full qualified class name. Now, in this case, let's define a data template to show the values of the properties first name and last name of a customer item view model. So let's go back to Visual Studio and let's add a closing element to this list view. And now let's set the item template property with the listview.itemTemplate property element. To this property, let's assign a data template. Now, inside of the data template element, you can create a UI element. Let's create here a stack panel and let's put a text block into this stack panel. Now let's bind the text property of this text block to the first name property of the customer item view model that is in the data context. So by default, you will have an object of this collection in the data context of the data template. Now on this text block, let's also set the font weight property to bold to display the first name bold. Now let's add another text block and on this one, let's bind the text property to the last name property of the customer item view model that is in the data context. Now let me bring up the application again. As you can see, now the first names and last names are displayed. So when you select a customer, it has that huge selection box. Now instead of displaying first name and last name below each other, let's show them on one line. So let's go again to the SAML editor. Let's change this stack panel here to a horizontal stack panel and let's set on the second text block a bit of margin. Let's give it a margin of 5 pixels on the left side, 0 at the top, 0 at the right and 0 at the bottom. Now let me bring up the application again and now you see this looks now really nice. Now let's stop the application. Instead of assigning the data template directly here to the item template property, you can also define it as a resource. This usually makes your SAML code a bit more readable. So let me cut the data template from here and let's remove here the listview.itemTemplate property element. Let's also remove the closing listview element and let's close the listview element directly. Now let's scroll up and here you can see already a property element for the resources property of the user control. Let's paste the data template into the resources and now let's set the xKey attribute to customer data template. Now let's scroll down again to the list view. Now here on the list view, you can set the item template property with the attribute syntax and with a static resource markup extension. As you can see, Visual Studio does not suggest here the resource key. So let's enter it manually as we know that it exists. Now let's run the application and let's see if this works. Yes, as you can see, the customers are displayed here with first name and last name and the first names are bold. But what I don't like is that the navigation was growing to show here this full name. When I add here an additional first name, you see the navigation grows so that it can also display that one. When I remove it again, the navigation shrinks. Instead of this growing and shrinking, I want to see a scroll bar in the navigation. Let's fix this in the next clip.